Magandang umaga mga kaibigan. This is Kaloy Conde. This is the first episode of the video podcast ng Rights Report Philippines. This is a website that I and my colleagues who are here this morning are running. This is a non-profit, independent, human rights focused media outfit. So we decided to produce this podcast because there's just a lot of things to talk about, okay? Ang pag-uusapan po natin ngayong umaga, ay ito nga nangyayari sa Negros Occidental, sa Toboso Municipality, ano? At maraming mga lumalabas na ng mga teorya at kung ano-ano pa tungkol dito. Kaya minabuti naming i-organize itong podcast na ito para i-try na sagutin itong mga tanong ang lumalabas. So kasama natin ngayong umaga ay si Inday Espina Varona, isang Batikan long-time veteran journalist na taga Negros din, taga Bacolod City, at isang matalik na kaibigan. Si Inday ay kasama bilang advisor ng editorial committee ng Rights Report. Good morning, Day.
Magandang umaga, Kaloy.
Yeah.
Magandang umaga, Dana.
Kasama din natin ngayong umaga si Dana Batnag, isa ring batikang journalist na matagal na natin kilala, matagal na rin journalist. Isa rin siyang membro ng advisory committee ng Rights Report Philippines, isang abogado din. So meron siyang a certain perspective na pwedeng pag-usapan natin dito. At isa sa mga pag-uusapan nga natin ay yung particularly yung mga tanong na ni-raise ni Dana sa isang story niya for Rights Report. In any case, magandang umaga, Dana.
Umaga, Kaloy. Magandang umaga, Inday.
So okay, simulan natin itong nangyari noong April 19, nagkaroon nga ng 12-hour gun battle or encounter or whatever you call it sa Toboso town, so munisipyo ng Toboso sa Negros Occidental. 19 yung namatay at kahapon nga nagsabi na ang Communist Party of the Philippines na 10 doon sa namatay ay mga rebelde ang kasama nila sa New People's Army at yung 9 doon ay mga civilian. So pag-uusapan din natin yan. No? At siyempre nung nangyari itong insidente na to, ang dami-dami ng mga report na lumabas, pero isa sa mga pinalinaw ni Dana nga doon sa istorya niya ay ang dami-dami mga tanong na hindi pa natatanong. At more importantly, marami pang mga impormasyon, mga detalye na hindi talaga ganun ka tawag dito, ka convincing na nilalabas ng Armed Forces of the Philippines. So simulan natin, no? Dana, yung storya mo medyo nagkaroon ng I would say malawak na reaction, ano? Kasi nga I think if I'm not mistaken, you were the first to raise specific questions dun nga sa nangyari sa Negros, ano? Anong follow-up mo doon? Anong follow-up analysis mo, tingin mo sa reaction sa story mo?
Hindi ko nakita lahat ng reactions. Pero yung isang nakita ko ay nagdagdag siya ng mga tanong. Una, explain ko muna paano ko hindi siya talaga story for me. It's just a series of questions. Pero paano nangyari yon? Kasi nung una, I was reacting based on my experience and my own personal knowledge about the parties involved, the NPA, the military, right? Pagkatapos, nag-search ako online kasi tinitignan ko lang kung ano yung pumapasok sa Facebook feed ko eh. Nag-search ako online sa stories and then nakita ko, ang daming kulang. Ang una, akala ko, it was an NPA camp. So sa akin, bakit sila nasa NPA camp? Eh di madidisgrasya ka talaga doon. Bakit sila pinapasok doon pagkatapos hindi in-insure ng mga kalabas? And then, wala naman palang term na NPA camp. Ito sa temporary encampment. Ano ibig sabihin ng temporary encampment? According to the military, nandiyan ba sila ng 3 linggo? Bumaba ba sila ng 1 araw? Walang malinaw. And yet we have judged people and we are quarreling with our friends kasi akala natin because of something that is not even sure, right? So, tapos may isang nag-point out doon. So, about the running gun battle. Okay, somebody pointed out, in a running gun battle, wala bang fired shots yung mga NPA? Bakit isang sundalo lang ang nasugatan of all people? Siya lang at 2 kamay pa pareho. Yung ganun. And then,
kung totoo,
hanggang
24 weapons yung nakuha.
Exactly.
Iba kasi.
Hindi rin sinabi saan nakuha yung 24 weapons eh. Diba? So, ang ano is, pangalawa, even the running gun battle. In some stories, ang nakita ko, series of clashes. Yun yung naka-parenthesis na dinescribe ng military. Tapos, mukhang na-describe na lang ng reporter as a running gun battle because that's what a series of clashes would look like. Pero, ang running gun battle, tumakbo sila from one point to another eh. Paano sila tumakbo? Ang series of clashes would be there's one here and then there's another here. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Pero, according to the NPA, mukhang isang grupo lang involved. So, hindi pa rin malinaw. Kasi yung journalist, supposedly, yung isa ko nakitang account, nasa Sitio Clarinding siya talaga. Wala siya sa Sumaguan where the battle started. And then, may isang story that says, bloated yung katawan niya, kaya hindi magkasya sa kabao, kaya hindi pa ma-turn over. And yet, may isang post ng picture niya supposedly sa Kalinaw, shortly after, na parang hindi naman bloated yung katawan. Paano naging bloated?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yes, ang daming questions and nobody is asking them kasi dapat yun yung pinapaliwanag.
Yeah.
Kasi, parang di ba we have to imagine, running gun battle, patay na sila lahat ng April 20. So, ibig sabihin, nakuha mo na lahat ng baril na nakatabi ng katawan. And that's important. Kasi sa IHL, if you are not firing a gun, you're not a combatant.
Yeah.
So,
Kahit
hindi
na
pwedeng sabihin,
kahit nakasama mo sila.
and you cannot, that means you cannot be killed. You can be arrested, but you cannot be killed. So, hindi pwedeng sabihin na, kasi iniwan nila sa gubat at saka sila tumakbo. Bakit patay?
That's a good question.
Bakit mo sinabing combatant? So, actually, yung mga questions na iyon, they are preliminary questions for deeper questions.
Yeah. Going to you, Dai, based on that one, sinabi ni Dana, these are outstanding questions. Do you think, but first of all, anong naging initial reaction mo din kung sa nangyari na to? But second, do you think itong mga questions na to ay going to be capably tackled by whoever's going to investigate this?
Oh, well, I think so. But una, no, what did I think? Immediately when I saw 19, parang gumano na, nag-straighten up agad ako na parang 19 NPAs killed in parang, okay, doon pa lang parang it didn't really sound right, you know. Not only because they've said that the MPA in Negros has been decimated so much na parang a couple of months ago, sinabi nga lang 6 or something, gano'n, no? But also because when the stories came out na, I remember the Himamaylan.
Yes.
Yun ang series, no? Parang gano'n yun, na ilang araw yun talaga. Dun sa pag-evacuate, dun sa who can be trapped. Kasi si Marchel, I was for Rappler then inano ko si Marchel na let's see beyond, you know, what the military or whatever other groups are saying. Punta ka doon, try
excuse me, this is Marchel Espina, who is also a Negrense journalist.
Oo.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Bacolod, the journalist, and pumunta siya doon at pumunta siya sa ilang evacuation centers doon sa tuktok ng bundok, mga simbahan na maliliit. Doon nakausap yung mga tao. Trap na yung mga tao nung nagtakbuhan na. Kasi nagbabakbakan na hindi na sila makaano. Ang layo ng tinakbo ng mga tao para makadating doon sa isang simbahan na maliit, actually a Christian church that opened its door for people. So doon ko na na pwede kasi talaga malayo na hindi ka combatant, within the area ka, nagputo ka na, alsahan na yung mga tao, tapos minsan I don't think the military comes in just one position. It will position itself in various possible exit roads. So maghahanap ang mga tao talaga kung saan sila makaalis ng matiwasay. No?
Yeah.
If that is even possible under those conditions.
So, balik na sa pangalawang tanong, Dai. You think all of this information, the CHR or whoever else na mag-investigate dito, given the conditions on the ground in Toboso and many of the underlying, they would be capable of going to the heart of this?
I think if the higher up in the executive, let's say the president says, okay, the CHR, gets a pool of independent experts, let's say, from forensics, si Dr. Fortune, for example, ang iba dyan, I think pwede yan. Pero kailangan ng merong hindi makikialam ang presidente, for example, but just magsabi na, these people are allowed, we will leave the CHR and other rights organizations, for example, na mag-conduct yan. I think it still can be done. Ang napansin ko doon kay Dana, yung mga questions niya, tama ba ako? Kasi parang minsan kasi kinukuha lang kung anong sinasabi ng sources no? And then tatakbo ka kasi may deadline kung ano man yung deadline. Pero kasi natuto na tayo dapat sa drug war, di ba? Kung yung I actually remember Dr. Fortune saying na kailangan ng journalist matuto so that they are able to cover better para mas nakakaintindi sila na nangyayari at hindi lang kumukuha at hindi lang nag-e-echo ng kung anong sinasabi ng mga tao.
Let's focus on that for a bit because ayaw naman natin maging unfair sa mga kaibigan natin, mga kasama natin journalists dito, kasi of all the areas sa Pilipinas na medyo dicey i-cover, kasama dyan yung Negros. Given the history, given the insurgency, given the violence there. I mean, hindi lang naman yan nag-iisa, obviously, but all the three of us have had experiences on this one in many different contexts. Dana, I remember you covered sa Luzon at that time, yung Marag Valley yata. I think you were there.
Marag. Yeah.
Yeah, if you can draw from all of these experiences a bit, and also you, Inday, kung ano yung konteksto ng mga ganitong klaseng coverage and what prevents or hamstrings journalists from really, getting this information, what prevents all of that? Dana?
Access, bawal.
Oh yeah, of course. Is that all
To be
from
fair,
you?
Ako, to be
Dana?
fair, dun sa mga nakita kong stories online, I had a sense na may mga details na hindi nalalagay. Maybe because ang tingin ng editor ay dapat news story lang ito, kaya maikli. For example, may story na lumabas about evacuees. Identifying kung saan yung evacuation areas, kung ano-ano na yung assistance na nabigay a day after the evacuation. Walang detalye how they were evacuated. So, ang iniisip ko doon, nagpunta ba yung reporter actually to talk to them? At kung nagpunta siya, kasi wala ako nakitang quote from the evacuees. Kung nagpunta siya, naalis kaya yung quotes? Or was that a press release na ginamit niya, kaya walang quotes from the evacuees? So, yung isa doon yun nga, yung sabi ni Inday, access. Pangalawa is fear. In a conflict situation, you can imagine na katatapos lang magbarilan. Pagkatapos, nandun na sila sa isang evacuation zone. And from day one, kinakausap na sila ng authorities. Talking about anti-terrorism. Sa palagay mo, anong sasabihin ng mga taong iyon pag may reporter na nagpunta?
Yeah. Good point.
Sa patagdag ko dyan, Loy, sa Himamaylan dati, talagang screenin. Hindi pwede. Nung dun, nilagay na sila sa malaking evacuation center, kaya napilitan kami magpapunta kay Marcel somewhere else. Hindi makapasok Hindi makatanong ang media sa evacuees doon. So meron talagang ganun. Tama si Dana, may ganung factor.
Is that because of may nilagay na kordon ang militar o talagang takot?
Both, nagsabi ang militar kasi kailangan pa screen ng panahon na yon, pero ang DSWD rin nagsabi, and may tama rin naman sila na mga private individuals ito at minsan raw may mga media na nakatutok ang mga camera dun sa mga mukha ng mga evacuees, which is sometimes also a problem. Pero napakiusapan naman, ang sabi nila, pwedeng lalabas lang. Pupili, lalabas ang tao, nakatayo dun sa isang parang mini platform habang ini-interview na parang natakot yung mga tao, ayaw na magsalita dahil nasa focus sila ng lahat ng tao nung ginawa yun.
Well, gusto ko lang susugan ng konti yan, Inday at saka Dana, kasi sa experience natin covering conflict areas, si Dana sa Luzon and other places, ikaw dahil sa Visayas, and ako sa Mindanao, it's always true na ang gobyerno or ang militar, they always try to control the media or at least limit their movements. We can pwede tayong manghula kung bakit nila ginagawa yun, but this has always been the case, especially in the Mindanao, in the Mindanao area, Zamboanga, Basilan, Sulugan yan. Hardly any independent reporter can go there na talagang to really report from the ground. Meron ka talagang kailangang access from the authorities. And I think hindi naman katakataka yan, because there are issues of security and safety. But at the end of the day, if the military, if the government, if the police is going to restrict access wholesale to whoever's looking into this, I mean, it doesn't serve the interest of transparency and justice, But obviously, lalabas yung issue na yan in the investigation that's coming. Tubutukan na lang natin ang CHR as a final point on this on the part of the for this part of the conversation. Tingin nyo the military, the national security establishment, the Marcos administration has the willingness to give CHR what it needs to determine what actually happened?
Sa totoo lang, kung hindi sila bigyan ng access, that's also a violation. Remember that the right to life includes the right to an investigation when the right to life is violated. And the right to a meaningful investigation, hindi yung basta-basta investigation. So kung ayaw nilang magbigay ng access, fine, that's a violation.
Yeah.
Inote lang ng CHR.
Yeah, that's true. And in fact, I think that's going to be, speaking of violation, maraming international commitment sa mga covenants ang Philippine government na pinirmahan. And that can easily be cited in case na hindi nila bigyan ng access o di kaya ng tamang resources or leeway ang CHR para tingnan ito. On that note, I want us to shift the discussion, guys, on the next part of this, IHL, International Humanitarian Law. Now, among the three of us, si Dana ang medyo sabihin natin expert dito because of her legal background. Although, in my work...
Mas kabisado mo yun eh.
In my work before at Human Rights Watch, medyo na-explore, napag-aralan din ng konti. I mean, the mandate being na International Humanitarian Law tsaka human rights. So, isa sa mga napansin ko sa nangyari dito, Dana and Inday, is that parang afterthought na lang yung pag-i-invoke ng IHL. Parang hindi siya talagang nakasama dun sa substantive na discussion in the aftermath of the whatever that is, the encounter, the carnage in Negros. At in fact, nabanggit mo kanina during the before we recorded this na may mga statements mga official katulad ni Defense Secretary Gibo Teodoro na when you read it talang tipong does this guy know what he's talking about? I mean, given the commitment ng government sa IHL supposedly. Keep in mind, guys, hindi lang itong IHL, hindi lang ito Geneva Conventions at hindi lang ito ibang mga pinirmahan ng gobyerno tungkol diyan. Meron din tayong batas on IHL, and I hope Dana can explore that. But also, as we pointed out in the story today, na dahil nga meron 2 batang namatay, may i-invoke na rin dito yung international law on yung Covenant on the Rights of the Child. So, anong tingin niyo dito? Bakit parang, or ako lang to kasi bias ako, parang hindi ganun ka solid, hindi ganun kalalim yung pag-uunawa sa IHL? Who wants to go first?
Sige, si Inday na.
Hindi talaga ganun kalalim ang pag-unawa sa tao, no? Siguro may ilang siguro human rights organizations na pwedeng mag-explain dyan, but karamihan, I don't think kakayanin nila mag-himay-himay ng mga konsepto na ganyan. So, ang ano lang nila is that automatic, kung nandyan ba, pwede, kailan ba pwedeng patayin o kailan ba pwedeng makonsider combatant, na kailangan yata ng mas malawak na pag-aral sa mga tao nito. I don't know, but a lot of even good friends have been PMing na sila talagang litong-lito. And puro
Yeah.
naman to nakapag-aral talaga. Hindi lang talaga nila nakuha yan.
Before you weigh in, Dana, actually point out ko lang, this was, malinaw ito Inday, no, dun sa mga, lalo sa mga feed natin sa social media na ang dami-dami mga komento about bakit sila andun? Nandun kasi sila, so dapat mamatay sila, dapat talaga mga rebellion, dapat sila targetin talaga. Bakit may researcher na andun? Anong ginagawa ng mga researcher na yon? Bakit nasa bundok sila kasama ang mga NPA? I think itong ganitong klaseng pag-uunawa, mababang pag-uunawa sa IHL, may intindihan mo ito sa mga ordinaryong tao na wala naman talaga, hindi naman talaga pinag-uusapan palagi ito. Even though the history of conflict in this country should have compelled a lot of us na pag-usapan yung international humanitarian law. But kita mo na rin ito sa mga pronouncement ng mga taong nasa gobyerno. People who should know better, like the Secretary of Defense, the AFP Chief of Staff, who know what IHL is about. But nagbibitaw pa rin sila ng mga salita na talagang undermines the government's position on IHL. Gusto ko lang i-point out yan. Dana, back to you.
Una, Kaloy, nung panahon nga ni Duterte, drug war, yung mga namatayan, ang iniiyak lang nila, bakit nyo pinatay? Pwede nyo namang tinorture. Diba? Pwede nyo namang hinuli lang. Walang due process. Walang human rights. Concept na nga lang ng human rights, napakahirap para sa atin na intindihin. IHL pa. But then again, when I was looking at the stories, at least yung nakita ko online, ang statement na nakita ko sa military had 3 elements. Bakit sila nandun? Bakit sila may baril? At bakit sila lumalaban? That would satisfy the concept of IHL, na combatant sila and so they can be killed. That was why I was asking, nasan ang baril? Sino ang may katabi? At sino ang may hawak? Kasi, di ba sa IHL, but ikaw nga yung mas nagpa-practice nito, pagka wala na yung baril, pag wala kang hawak, hindi ka combatant. If you are not fighting. If you are fighting now at bigla kang sumurrender, 5 minutes later, hindi ka na combatant. Hindi ka pwedeng patayin. Pwede kang i-aresto, but not killed.
Yeah. Tawag yan or
That's
the combat.
why, exactly, so that's why it matters where the guns were found and where the bullet casings were found.
Yeah.
Diba? Gaano kalapit in relation to the bodies? May katabi nga akong baril, wala namang bullet casings. How can you prove that I was actually firing?
That's good. Actually, ito challenge ito ngayon sa Philippine military, sa police at sa gobyerno in general, which is that because again, we're coming from the assumption na alam nila ang IHL. Pero parang ang ginagawa nila ngayon, they're feeding into the ignorance of the public tungkol sa international humanitarian law by giving them, really propagandistic information na alam mo na inaano talaga yung pag-iisip ng mga tao. When in fact, duty dapat ng gobyerno na to na linawin kung ano yung mga issues pagdating sa international humanitarian law. Like for instance, yung term nga kanina, yung hors de combat na sinasabi natin, ito yung mga taong, halimbawa, rebelde, na nasugatan o sumurrender o di kaya nahuli, hindi mo na siya pwedeng galawin right after that point. Pwede mo na siyang galawin kung bigla niyang kinuha yung armas at nagpaputok uli sa sundalo, nanlaban. Parang ganun ang nangyari.
Bigla siyang nanlaban.
Biglang nanlaban. I mean, there are ways to do it, I suppose. Pero ang ano dito is that merong mga batas ang digmaan. Tawag dito, rules of war, na malinaw. Unang-una, may nagsabi nga sa Facebook nga So anong sinasabi nyo? Napaka-delusional nyo naman. Anong sinasabi nyo? Na dapat yung mga sundalo, bago sila makipagbarilan, isiguraduhin muna nila na walang baril yung tinatarget nila? Actually, oo. Kasi pag di nila ginawa yun, violation yun ng IHL. And the military knows this. The NPA knows this. I mean, hindi natin sinasabing ang military lang ang may kakayahan na mag-violate ng IHL. Pati din naman ang NPA. And in fact, this has been documented before. But in this instance, where majority of the fatalities come from the side of the NPA and also from civilians, ang burden of following IHL, of making sure that IHL is paramount here, is with the Philippine government. Okay? So tingin ko, malaki pang I don't know if you agree with me, but apart from just promoting the human rights, dapat mas active yung promotion ng IHL sa Pilipinas ngayon. What do you think, Dai?
And also, dun sa sinabi ni Dana na yung sinabi ng military, 1, 2, 3, parang nagpapakita, alam nila. No? Alam nila, pero rhetorical yan, wala silang ebidensyang ipapakita, paulit-ulit lang, tapos tatanong. You know what it reminds me? Kaloy, ikaw na nagsabi, Dutertification, di ba? The Marcos government has wanted to distance itself from the Duterte here. And yet we are seeing a lot of the things that happened then carried over. Pati na nanlaban, and etc. na yan. So siguro
na-comment
kailangan...
nga eh.
Ano yun, Dana?
Kaya na-comment. Na-comment nga eh.
Well,
Diba? I
lang,
mean,
na-comment.
and I was saying Dutertification. Eh, baka naman kaya na-comment. Thank you for following the footsteps.
On this point, final point in this one, and I'd be very curious to know what you think of this. But I think, from where I sit, that given the international aspect of this in terms of respecting IHL, the rules of war, hindi lang ito pananagutan ng gobyerno na mag-imbestiga at make sure that future conduct ng Philippine military and the police in future engagements with insurgent groups follow the letter of the IHL. But also, I think, merong papel dito ang international community, particularly yung mga diplomatic community who are very, very keen about IHL. Kasi napapansin nyo, parang wala silang halos sinasabi dito yung mga embassy sa Pilipinas. Lalo na, merong dalawang PhilAm pala na namatay, but wala tayong naririnig from the United States Embassy on this one. But dito, naipapakita lang talaga ang kahalagahan ng IHL. And I think it's about time that the international community also should weigh in. Just a quick note before you weigh in also, Inday. Norway, of all the countries in Europe, they have been the ones that are very, very supportive of the peace process between the government and the new people, the Communist Party. The National Democratic Front. Although wala ng peace process ngayon, I think marami pa rin namang bansa sa European Union ay talagang gustong matapos itong kaguluhan na to. Pero again, back to the point. Do you agree na dapat pumasok na rin dito, mag-weigh in na rin ang international community?
Yes, they should. And, but Kaloy, ikaw na rin based from what I've read from you as dating nasa HRW ka, no, and lagi mong nirereklamo rin na minsan kulang rin talaga sa response yung mga European countries who we expect to be more conscious about human rights than, say, the United States, no, pagdating dyan. So, meron din siguro partly, kasi narinig ko rin yan ilang beses na mas maayos naman ito kesa yung dating gobyerno. Kahit off the record, laging sinasabi yan sa atin. On the other hand, Pilipino, ganun din pag ano. So, meron kayang ganyang trade-off, whether sa diplomatic circle or sa mga Pilipino na hindi naman ganyan kalawak. So, parang ayaw natin to rock the boat too much. Hindi ko alam pero minsan may feeling ako kasama yan sa pag-weigh ng mga tao kung ano ang kanilang reaction sa mga nangyayari.
Yeah, good point. Dana?
Well, I think kasi, partly it's because of the confusion. Hindi nga malinaw. Was it an NPA camp? Was it a civilian? I mean, kasi naman, outside of an NPA camp, hindi dapat pwede tayong magpunta kahit saan, di ba? NPA camp lang yung pwedeng danger zone. It's an NPA camp. But, yung ganun. So, una yon. Pangalawa, dahil maagang dineclare ng military na combatant lahat, tumahimik yung iba. They were waiting. Pero for me, for example, yung kay RJ, may body of work yung tao. Ano yan? NPA sa gabi, journalist sa umaga, ganun. Nagbakasyon ako magbabakasyon lang ako ngayon, mag-NPA po ako ng 2 buwan. Pagkatapos journalist ako ulit. Kita mo naman yung katawan ng tao, hindi naman madaling mabuhay sa bundok na medyo hindi ka masyadong fit. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Ay, ibibigay ko na yung doon sa babae para yung doon sa kay Alisa. Okay. Medyo payat yun. Baka pwede pa. Pero gusto ko rin malaman, ano bang baril lang nakita sa tabi niya? Kaya ba niyang buhatin yun? Di ba? I mean, may mga baril na mahirap i-fire. You have to be very fit. That's why it matters. Which guns were found beside whom. So anyway, so ganon. So I think it's because of the confusion that some people have chosen to stay silent kasi hindi nila alam ano ba talaga ang nangyari. Although, for me, at least kay RJ, I think, malinaw yung kay RJ. So, sa akin, nung sinabing lahat sila combatant and then you have a journalist there, the burden of proof shifted doon sa AFP to prove na combatant sila. Kasi na-prove mo na at least one is civilian. And they were claiming they were all combatants, wala pang identification.
Yes.
But yun na nga the AFP is not being pressed. Di ba? Or are they being pressed and they're not answering kaya walang lumalabas na storya? Kasi dapat napaliwanag na tong mga ito eh.
Mhm. Actually, tama ka doon, no? Kasi, again, it's not as if this is the first time this happened. Marami ng mga, excuse me, marami ng mga individual, marami pa nga mga PhilAm na makailan lang mga nahuli sa area ng mga NPA. At I think, dito lumalabas ngayon yung napaka-insidious na campaign. Kung gaano ka-insidious yung campaign ng gobyerno na kinukulakulan lahat ang mga kritiko ng gobyerno at mga aktivista. Yung narrative na pag ikaw ay leftist, communist terrorist ka na. This has been going on for a long while, decades, even before. This predates, Duterte and even Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo. This go way back in
1988 na yan, yung mga logbooks ng military reports. Communist terrorist yan eh. CD.
Yung Oplan Bantay Laya,
Communist
remember
terrorist
that?
groups.
Oo.
Yeah, so matagal nang conflated yan.
Yeah. So tingin ko ito yung isa sa mga dito isa sa mga factor dito kung bakit talagang nahulma na ang pagtingin ng publiko tungkol sa mga individual na to, sa mga aktivista, sa mga journalist na ganito. I mean, the bottom line being na kung ikaw ay hindi NPA, wala ka dapat sa bundok. Yun ang kanilang linya palagi. Pero speaking of speaking of yung kulang sa pangunawa, appreciation sa mga issues na tulad ng ganito ng marami sa atin at saka sa publiko na rin. Gusto kong mag-shift tayo ngayon sa discussion, Dai and Dana, toward what is happening right now na talagang nakakalungkot. Itong patuloy na pagdi-dehumanize dito sa mga namatay sa Negros. Dito lumalabas na yung napakadaming mga memes, mga trolls na tipong lumalabas na parang sumusuporta sa militar at sa gobyerno, pero at the expense of these people, of the victims. Regardless of what you think of them, rebelde yung mga yan or what, pero the level of, sabi ko nga kay Christian Isguera kagabi, nakaririmarim na mga pag-dehumanize sa mga taong ito ay ibang klase. Ibang klase talaga. And I know you yourselves have seen this on social media. I'd be interested to know what you think. Let's start with you, Inday.
Nakakangit-ngit siya, pero hindi rin siya surprising na sa akin. It has all the hallmarks of what people did, of what trolls did sa panahon ng drug war. No? Yung demonize, and so make the killings legitimate. No? Pattern yan talaga ng drug war din. Pangalawa, ang tingin ko, kailangan ng medyo deep dive dito kasi mukhang orchestrated na ilang mga bagay. May feeling ako na mukhang merong network, no, na nagpapakalat nito. Hindi ko lang alam kung saan mismo, no? Hindi ko alam saan nag-intersect ang mga networks itong mga iba't ibang grupo, but definitely may intersection din. But it also, I think, boils down to bakit ganito, ikaw rin nagsabi nito, bakit naging ganito yung psyche natin. I think it was always a little bit like this, na nagkaroon lang siya ng panahon ni Duterte, nagkaroon ng it is okay. It is actually good that you feel this way, no? Pero noon pa yan, kahit 80s na, lagi na yan nakikita na when a group of people rock the boat in a community, lalo na sa amin, sa Negros, na napaka, yung power talaga ng, let's say, ng landlords and everything dyan, makikita mo na huwag kang maingay. I can understand that in Negros dahil sa Negros, panahon na yan, history, kapag merong isang naka-anger ng power in that land, may power yung may-ari ng lupa na maghasik ng punishment across the board sa kanyang mga sakada at ang mga kanyang mga pamilyang nakatira sa mga asyenda. That really seeps into the population. Kasi hindi lang naman yan isang dekada, Loy, centuries yan sa aming probinsya.
It's the colonial experience, no? Sabi nga ni Regine Cabato, yung kaibigan natin na kinausap ko siya tungkol dito. Mukhang this has the signs of a malign operation. Syempre, wala pang napapatunayan. We haven't done a deep dive on this one, and we intend to do that given the right tools and resources. But this is very, very, very concerning actually. No? Dana, your thoughts on this one?
Okay, follow up ko muna yung sinabi ni Regine Cabato. Actually, yun din ang iniisip ko. I haven't seen much of it dahil magandang aking very well curated ang aking social media.
Good for you. Congrats.
So it's only cats and and shoes. So anyway, so wala akong nakikita except somebody na nagtanong sa isang chat group tapos pinost niya doon. But I agree with Regine. Ang suspicion ko talaga dyan, it's information manipulation and interference. Pero domestic. So parang lately I've been doing pero ang investigation na ginagawa ko with some friends is foreign information manipulation and interference. This one is domestic. So ano ba kasi yung information interference? Ano ba yung malign operation? Basically, it seeks to, through the use of trolls and chatbots and basically AI, it seeks to change the discussion by changing the perception ng mga tao. Ganito pala yung iniisip ng iba. So, and then imagine, nasaan ba tayo ngayon? Nasa isang crisis tayo na nakakagalit at nakakatakot, and wouldn't I want to blame someone for it? Yeah. Or gusto ko kaya na, di ba? I mean, just lash out. Ganon, make fun of people kasi I cannot lash out at government kasi mamaya ipalibel ako or hindi naman nila kasalanan talaga yung nangyayari pero sinong sisisihin ko kung bakit mahirap ang buhay ko, diba? Yeah. Better some stranger. Una yon. So pagkatapos, balik tayo, information it's a malign operation. So pasok ka ng trolls at takot na magpapakalat ng corned beef tapos isipin ng iba yung mga totoong tao. Oo nga, yung nakikisakay. Diba? Uso rin yun na trending naman, makikisakay na lang ako. At least meron akong napatawa ngayon or may pinagtawanan ako ngayon. Ang sama-sama ng araw ko So, nakikisakay ang mga tao for reasons sometimes na for them, either mababaw or minsan di nila alam. Nakita ko lang, nirepost ko. Ganon. And then, meron ng public perception na, ang mga aktivista talaga pwedeng gawin corned beef. But how valid is that perception? How many people actually think that?
Yeah.
Diba? So we don't know.
Talaga.
So, tapos so pwede nga may nagsimula niyan kasi gusto mong dumikit yun.
Yeah.
Because it will legitimize the killing because it will lead to what you said and what Inday also pointed out, the Dutertification. But this time it's not the drug addicts, it's the activists. Pwede silang gawing corned beef. Pag nag-succeed tong campaign na ito, yung susunod, ground beef na, hindi na corn. Kasi yung ground mas fine But anyway, so ganon.
May I hated to use that phrase, pero somebody, a columnist from Northern Dispatch use it. Double dead ang nangyari sa
Ah,
mga aktivista na
right,
to.
yeah.
Si Danilova Molintas yata nag-title ng column niya. But you see here, the problem
Drug
here
war
is that,
victims.
tawag dito, it's easy to say na wala na bang humanity ang mga Pilipino. But tama ka doon, Dana, sinabi mo, marami dito sa mga nagre-repost ng mga memes, yung nagre-react ng mga haha na emoji, kahit di naman nakakatawa, kahit na bangkay yung nakikita, ay parang apart from the fact na tingin na establish na before sa ibang context na talagang minamanipulate ito, parang social media, andali na lang talagang maging, andali na lang maging gago sa social media because of the ease of the medium, pero tanong kita, Andana, also of course, isa sa mga thesis ko dito out of this is that hindi naman natin sinasabing ang gobyerno ang may kagagawa nitong mga disinformation, itong mga dehumanization na ito. Pero malinaw naman sa mga sinasabi na rin ng militar, ng pulis, at even by the National Task Force on Local Communist Armed Conflict, NTFILCAT, na siyang isa sa mga nagpaunang talagang i-dehumanize itong mga aktivista, ay napaka importante for the government, if it's serious about its standing in the international community, lalo na yung success, quote-unquote, nila sa West Philippine Sea, they are undermining all of these good things na ginagawa nila. And so it is in their best interest right now to really clamp down on this and order any unit within the national security establishment to stop what they're doing. Do you believe that? Right?
I wish they do that. Do I believe that? Wala pa akong nakikitang signs of willingness to do it.
Well, that's sad.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure it's in the interest of the government. Remember where we are. Meron tayong isang crisis na maraming taong galit sa gobyerno. May nakausap akong taxi driver. Wala raw ayuda para sa taxi driver. Sabi ko, meron yan sa operators. Yung gano'n. And then, parang ang ano niya is, wala ka namang makukuha sa gobyerno. I was telling him, meron na nga, yung gano'n. I had to tell him. Pero, may pagtingin na wala akong maaasahan sa gobyerno. And remember where we came from, na maraming tao sa gobyerno ang nagnanakaw. Diba? And so, wag mong kalimutan yung the impeachment focuses on Sara, right? But Sara also, but among yung mga nasisisi doon is Romualdez and Saldico, who are affiliated with the president. So, exactly na kanino sa tingin ng tao ang link sa magnanakaw? Hanggang sa vice president lang ba yan because of the impeachment process at yung nawawalang confidential funds, or yung DPWH budget na mukhang umaabot hanggang ang investigation ngayon ay nasa office of the former speaker na, who was closely related to the president. In a situation like that, saan kikiling ang military pag nagkaroon ng Pinoy?
Yeah.
And if you clamp down now on the military, how will they react when you need help? Or will it make them more vulnerable to somebody who easily commends them, even without an investigation?
Well, that's an excellent point. That's actually a very an excellent point, Dana, and I think also, brings to it highlights the dilemmas and the issues that the Armed Forces of the Philippines faces right now. And I think on that note, we can end this episode of this podcast. There are other things to talk about, Inday and Dana, about what's happened in Negros and the aftermath. There are issues about bakit ba nag-exposure or nag-i-immerse itong mga estudyante, hindi lang from UP, sa mga komunidad na meron namang gulo, like in areas na merong nakontrolado ng NPA. Kailangan sagutin din yan. At bakit meron pang mga issues about, ano yung mga kahirapan, ano yung mga hinaharap ng mga komunidad sa Pilipinas outside of Metro Manila, katulad ng Negros, kung bakit napakalakas pa rin ng insurgency. So marami pa tayong mga pag-uusapan in future episodes, but tingin ko okay na to muna bilang panimula
Good
dito
ka
sa
na.
ating podcast episode nito. Pagod na tayo, kadadaldal. But I would like to give you the last word, Inday and Dana, on this one. Let's start with you, Inday.
Kailangan siguro maintindihan lang ng taong bayan na kapag may nangyayari ng ganito, hindi hadlang ang human rights para sa isang maayos na lipunan. Huwag natin titingnan na ang human rights ang kontrabida dun sa law and order and sa safety. I think we should go back na nangyari na yan pagdating when the time comes na tayo, kahit ordinaryo tayo, naipit tayo, human rights din natin ang sasandalan natin para magkaroon ng protection kahit paano and when we call for help. So wag nating itaboy yan na parang peste siya sa ating lipunan.
Excellent point, Dana. Dana?
Sa akin kasi, babalik din ako dun sa sinulat ko about questions. Ang problema dito, nag-aaway tayo based on our opinions without facts. We are not asking questions. For example, yung pinag-aawayan yun nga, bakit nandun yung mga dapat ba hindi pinupuntahan ng NPA areas? So anong gagawin mo sa NPA areas na yun? Isolate mo na lang sila para silang may sakit na dapat walang pumapasok? Ganon? Does it make you abnormal pagka pumasok ka sa isang mahirap na community? Anong difference ng community sa bundok doon sa community sa Tondo? Except that, baka mapatay ka ng military. Di dapat mo kilalanin yung mga taong yun, right? I mean, so yun parang instead of saying na hindi ka dapat magpunta, so bakit hindi? We're not asking the why questions. Instead, we're judging. Parang konting exercise ng brain cells bago tuluyang mawala ang brain cells, di ba? Let's ask questions instead of judging.
That's a really important reminder. Let's ask questions instead of judging. Magtanong muna bago manghusga. Dapat yata slogan natin yan. This has been a very, very good conversation, Dana Batnag and Inday Espina-Varona, both members of the Rights Report Editorial Advisory Committee. Salamat ng marami. And I would like to invite everybody to check out yung website namin, www.rightsreport.org, where you can find a lot of the stories, a lot of the commentaries and analysis about not just this issue but on many other issues that have to do with human rights. Marami po doon. And also you can follow all of us. You can follow Rights Report sa aming social media accounts. Ang common handle ng lahat ng accounts namin ay @RightsReportPH. So, salamat ang marami at kita-kits tayo doon at siguro ang wish lang natin ay mas ayos pa natin or mas mapalalim pa natin ang pag-uusap tungkol sa human rights at international humanitarian law. Ito po si Kaloy Conde, editor ng Rights Report Philippines. Magandang umaga sa inyo lahat.